not sure about this one. Usually I have a sense for these things, having done this for so many years, but I'm not sure. What do you think? Do you think Sam is going to be able to reach her ideal retirement? It's a good question. So if you've been following along on this Retirement Plan Live Flying Solo Edition, we're going to find out here shortly. If you haven't, go check out the beginning of May, because we've been working with a listener in walking through them identifying their ideal retirement and their financial resources and the risks that they're facing. It's been pretty interesting. I've enjoyed it. So, if you are new, my name is Roger Whitney, by the way. I am, by day, a financial advisor walking this journey into retirement with clients. And by night, I guess, I'm here with you, noodling on how not just to survive retirement, but about how to rock retirement. So this is getting exciting here. So here's what's going to happen. This is how we're going to find the answer to this question. On June 7th, which is a Thursday, at 7 p.m. Central Time, Sam, Nicole, she'll be there. She's always there. She's a lurker. So Sam, Nicole, and myself are going to be on a webinar where I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to walk Sam through the analysis. We're going to look at her ideal retirement. We're going to look at her financial resources. We're going to look at the investment allocation, and I'm going to show her the results of my analysis as to whether she can achieve this ideal retirement. If she can, we're all going to go, yippee, stress test it against the 5 typical risks of retiring, and then have fun. If she can't, we're going to have to do some work to come up with a solution to get her most of what she's looking for, or a retirement that's focused on the things that she cares about most. So you get to join us live and type in your questions, and maybe we can crowdsource some solutions in the event it doesn't work. And the way you're going to be able to access this webinar is you're going to have to be a member of 6 Shot Saturday, which is our weekly email that we go out every Saturday morning with 6 quick tips on how to just rock life. So if you're a member of that, you're going to get a link in there to be able to register for the webinar. If you are not, you can go to rogerwhitney.com/6shot and put in your name and email, and then you'll get the information on how to register for the webinar on June 7th. So this is exciting, but hey, we got a big show today. Big show. We have some answers to listener questions about Sam's journey, and then we have 2 conversations, one with 2 people that have been retired for a while that are very wise people. I'm pretty close to them. I'm glad to have them on. And then we have a gentleman who said, hey, I heard that episode where you interviewed the 5 ladies that are single. What about the dudes? I said, well, no dude stood up. So Herb stood up. So you're going to be able to hear Herb and I talk about his perspective as a man approaching retirement as a single dude. So we can't get to any of that until we have that all-important disclaimer. Now, you know the score. If you've been here, if you don't, here's the deal. I work as a fiduciary for clients. You're probably not a client, so I can't give you advice. So don't take advice on the show. I only give advice to clients that I work with. You can go to rogerwhitney.com to figure that out if you'd like to see if we're a fit. But until that point, remember, before you make any decisions, talk to your legal advisor, your tax advisor, your financial advisor, because that's just all common sense. Now let's go answer some of the questions from you fine folks about Sam's journey. So in the Hot Topic segment today, what we want to do is talk about a few of your questions that we've had with Jackie and Carla and Scott and Mark and KJ and Sarah email in about Sam's journey and this whole idea of retiring single. So let's go to Jackie. So Jackie's interesting because she's actually married. She says, as a married woman with a husband 7 years my senior and in poor health, my fear is that we'll run out of money or run through our savings paying for his medical costs. And I'll have little left when he's gone. And she wants to know, is her IRA money or other money in her name protected in any way from needing to be used for his healthcare costs? Does Medicaid count it? And it's a great question because she says, hey, it strikes me that only having one set of end-of-life healthcare costs is an advantage that singles probably don't think about. I don't know if I think about it that way, but I get your point because a lot of times it's going to be the lady that is the single one, usually, and even if they were married because their husband passes away. So first off, I am not an attorney and not an expert in Medicaid. So I'm going to link to a site that had an article on elder law that talks about this very issue. And according to the article, that I believe was written by attorneys, it says, in order to be eligible for Medicaid benefits, a nursing home resident may have no more than $2,000 in assets. In general, the community spouse may keep one half of the couple's total countable assets up to a maximum of $123,600. I'm quoting from the article. That's in 2018. So the example they use is if a couple has $100,000 in countable assets on the date of the applicant entering a nursing home, he or she will be eligible for Medicaid once the couple's assets have been reduced to a combined figure of $52,000. $2,000 for the applicant, $50,000 for the community spouse. And IRAs, my understanding is, are counted to those countable assets, which are the resources, things that aren't countable that I think you get to keep, or things like the house and stuff like that. We're definitely going to have to do a little series and some more research on this because it's an important question. So, Jackie, yeah, it looks like your IRAs may be at risk. And again, some states have different rules around this, and we'll try to address this in a more in-depth level in some future show, but I'll put a link to that in the 6-Shot Saturday so you get that article and maybe you can do some more research too. Now, Carla asks, she says, what inflation rate should I use for retirement planning and how can I hedge against inflation? It's a big question. So the inflation rate that we're using, and it's noted in the summary documents that you're receiving on Sam's Journey in 6-Shot Saturday, it's about 4%. I think it's just a hair under 4%. How do you hedge against inflation? Well, we did a whole series on investing last summer. You can go back to that, and maybe Nicole can dig up the episode numbers for that 6-Shot Saturday. I love it that I can assign Nicole work right here in the show. It's crazy. I'm sure she's loving it. But we will definitely do a dive into that specific question, how to hedge against inflation, in another episode. Because there are various ways that you can do it and ways that people attempt to do it that may get you into some quandaries. So we'll do that through an investing series. But we're using about 4%, Carla. Now, Scott has a question about inflation as well. And I think Scott might be an advisor. I couldn't tell, but that was my impression from the email. He says, for Sam Singleton's expenses, why do you use such a high inflation rate number of, I guess it's 3.97%? Okay, thanks, Scott, for pointing that out. He says, this is way higher than the past 15 years, according to the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics. And he even gave me the data. Thanks, Scott. So over the last 15 years, according to the USBLS, inflation runs about 2.09%. So 15 years seems like a long time. He said, why are you using almost 4%, right? Because that's really going to be a drag on the plan. It's a great question, Scott. My answer is we use the CPI data, Consumer Price Index data, from 1970, which I think is about when they really started tracking it. Now, it's had some iterations of how it's calculated. There's a whole nother discussion on that. So we just use all the data. So you're right. Over the last 15 years, inflation, reported inflation, has been much more muted than the last, I'm trying to do my math now, 48 years. Just like, and you'll see it on the webinar, when we talk about whether it's investment returns or asset class returns or risk numbers, when we use numbers, I try to use all the data available, right? Because the last 15 years is less of a true representation of all the data that's out there. I mean, think about if we use from 1975 to 1990. You could probably dig up the data for me, Scott, but my guess is the inflation rate probably closer to 10%, or at least in the high single digits. You know, that was true for that season, but by using all the data, I think we're getting a much better representation of all the ins and outs and all over the place. So that's why we use that number. I think using too low of number is risky, right? I'd rather err to the side of using all the data than say, well, the next 15 years will be like this 15 years. I go back and I can remember in the 1990s when people were wanting to retire. It's like, I'm going to retire and I'm going to assume I get a 20% rate of return and I'll just take out 10% of my assets a year and I'll be fine. And the reason they thought that way is they looked at the last 10 or 15 years and said, oh, markets are great. And that was right before we had the tech crash. So I'm just using all the data, Scott. So next comment is from Mark, and it's not really a question, but a comment. He says he really wanted to point out an idea that we mentioned in passing in terms of Sam's travel plans. And I had thrown out this idea of house sitting in Europe or elsewhere if she travels for extended periods. And Mark says he recently joined homeexchange.com, a curated and carefully vetted site, which has very good reports from his friends anyway, that would reduce the $20,000 she's setting aside for long European holidays. People even exchange vehicles. It's a great use of assets that would otherwise lay empty, which is a great idea. And I've never explored home exchange other than just in passing, Mark. So I'm glad you brought it up. And I would love, actually, in fact, send me an email, Mark, because as you're using it, I would love to hear your experience, because I bet your story would be very helpful to Heather. So if you're willing, shoot me an email and we can discuss that. And then Mark has a final thought. He says, I would say Sam really should investigate the side business idea. As a motivated and obviously intelligent person, hey, Sam, isn't that nice? Dropping straight into retirement at a relatively young age could be a tad boring. She has so much to give, so a mix of paid or voluntary work plus helping with her daughter's future families would be a nice mix. Cheers, Nicole. Keep up the fantastic work. Hey, wait a second. Why'd you tell Nicole to keep up the fantastic work? What am I doing here? Thanks for the comments, Mark. All right, let's go move on to KJ. Now, KJ had an interesting question, and it wasn't necessarily related to Sam, but I wanted to read it. He said, can you tell me where I can find a good financial education on the internet for free or little money? I have been ripped off by the family broker who put me in funds and charged large fees and an AUM fee when I am a blue-collar worker who had to sacrifice to save. I'm 60 years old and I need to do something, so maybe I have something to show for all my work life. Please help me find something. I can read all the blogs, but it gets hard to find all the information in one place. Free or little money, it's like nothing's free in the world, right? If it's free or little money, it means you're going to have to do all the work. You know, there's always a price to pay. But I think all of the information and education is out there for you to organize yourself. And what my reply to Sam personally was, hey, I think finding good, solid books that, you know, a book organizes a lot of this information. And as a totally selfless but shameless plug, I said, you know, that was part of the purpose of my book, was to take a lot of the things that we talk about and put them in a very organized way. So my suggestion to KJ and to anyone else is my book, I think, is a good resource. It is less about the numbers and more about the mindsets and how to make decisions than the tactical. But there are other fantastic tactical books out there that we've talked about and we'll talk about again. So KJ, if it's for free or little money, I think then books would be a good place to get the organization once you find people that you trust the voice and how they're sharing it. So that'd be my suggestion. And then the last comment I want to talk about before we get on to the conversations is Sarah. Now, she doesn't have a question. She just wanted to say, this is sort of affirmation, but I think it's a good comment. She says, thanks for all the podcasts, especially the one recently with several single women and their goals, plans, hopes, dreams for retirement. I am in the same boat, rowing by myself, and I learned a lot about the psychological aspects of this future endeavor. As I'm pretty much set financially, I've now come to realize it's not just about the money. I feel better about the timelines I've set for myself, and I feel less weird about being a happy single woman. And then she said, I think we may take over the world. You very well may take over the world. But I think that's a wonderful quote. I feel less weird about being a happily single woman. Because it's not weird, but sometimes it can seem that way. And it's great that you've come to that realization. Bravo, Sarah. All right, let's go get some retirement wisdom from two wonderful people and another third guy I just met, Herb. So I wanted to bring on these two people because, one, they're retired. They've been retired for a while. They are married, but they have a little bit more of a unique perspective on life and retirement and some of the medical risks, because one of them is a doctor. And I'm pretty close to him. It's my aunt and my uncle, who maybe that's why I have a different perspective. It rubbed off on me, but they're wonderful people. And I think this conversation adds a lot of value. So let's listen to Patty and Tim. So this is really exciting because I have my aunt and uncle on the show who are married, but they have some wisdom I think that can share in this identifying risks as a single person in retirement. So how you guys doing?
We're doing good.
We're doing good, Roger. Thank you for having us.
So the reason we're doing this is, Patty, you and I were talking the other day because you just had a knee replacement.
I did. Turned out to be quite the to-do.
Quite the to-do. And now, for everybody, how old are you? I know that's a rude question to ask.
I am 70 years old, and actually the knee surgery surprised me. I didn't really think it was quite as bad as the doctor seemed to think. And I'm very healthy and I'm very physically fit. But it turned out that the doctor felt the knee had to be replaced and right away. So we had to make some quick adjustments. And as I said, it turned out to require more from us than we had expected.
So when we were talking, you had mentioned some of the things that he prompted as far as, do you have someone to do this? So you had to change your house a lot in preparation, right?
Yes, we did. We had to get a lot of we had to get a walker, a cane, a special apparatus for the bathroom.
And for the shower and the tubs. And we ended up realizing that we're going to have to get some help in for at least the first 2 weeks after the surgery. And they really encouraged us. They said you cannot be alone in the house after surgery like this. You either have to go to a nursing home where they have rehabilitation services, or you have to have someone in your home to help you. That really surprised me.
Yeah. And luckily we had a niece that was 24 years old and had some vacation time, and we paid for her to fly down and paid her for staying with us for the first week. And that really made all the difference.
And so logistically, this was pretty difficult, even though the two of you are married.
Right.
Yes. Even though the two of us are married and Tim is a physician, there was just so much pain and drugs, and I wasn't able to really function in the kitchen, or really I needed help in the shower. As I said, it was both humbling and surprising that I would need so much assistance. And Tim did so much. And our niece, Ani, who came to help us, really saved us in a lot of ways.
Part of the problem is it required 24-hour care. I mean, because in the middle of the night, she needed help going to the bathroom, which happened 2 or 3 times a night, and then all throughout the day. So it would overwhelm, one person helping her. And between the two of us, we were able to split the time and maintain our own health.
And even then, you brought down a niece to help.
Yes.
Right.
And it was very good because when you have knee surgery, you can only sleep for about 2 hours at a time before you have to get up, walk around the house, ice the knee, sit in a chair, go back to bed until it stiffens up again, and you have to repeat that. So for the first, I would say, 10 days following surgery, I only slept for 2 hours a night, and then I would have to get up and move around the house. So it was really good to have an additional person. We had a monitor in my room where she could hear if I needed her. And again, Tim could get a decent night's sleep and be there for me during the day.
Yeah, so you can just imagine what this would be like if you were single with not a lot of family around.
Yes, it'd be very, very hard. A lot of times in that situation, the doctors recommend that you go to a rehabilitation center from the hospital for the first week or two, because then you have round-the-clock care and you have physical therapy right there, and you have your food prepared for you. So it's I think it'd be very difficult for a single person to handle everything by themselves.
Now, Tim, you are a doctor. You were an oncologist, correct?
That's right.
And you've practiced for years. In your experience, I mean, that's a whole different type of thing than a knee operation. I'm sure you've encountered a lot of people that were single and older dealing with that issue. Any wisdom or thoughts from that journey?
Well, the one thing that comes out real strongly is if you're older and you're retired and by yourself, you really should consider the medical care facilities in the area where you're going to live. And that should be one of the inputs into where you go to live in retirement, because you're going to be using health facilities more, and you're going to need to be going back and forth to health facilities and doctors much more frequently than when you were in your 40s and 50s. So it's a real strong consideration.
And you guys recently moved to where you live. And I remember part of that journey was doing recon on not just do I like the neighborhood, but do I like the doctors in the facilities? Who would I use as a doctor before I even move there?
Right. Luckily, I knew a lot of the doctors here beforehand, and you can get information about how doctors are online nowadays. There are surveys to give other patients feelings about doctors, and you can use your doctor wherever you're at. Sometimes they can network through and tell you about other doctors and if you're going to move to a new area.
Now, what do you do? Because you live in an area where you don't have a lot of immediate family, right? I know, well, we are family and we're all spread out. So what have you seen? You basically flew a niece in. So hopefully you had a good relationship with your niece that she was willing to do this, right?
She's terrific.
I mean, those are some of the best people to help you, I think, is a lot of times nieces and nephews, they're younger. I mean, your sibs, your brothers and sisters, they're the same age as you. And sometimes they're not capable of lifting and carrying things around that are heavy. So the nieces and nephews are an ideal source. And it's very good. We develop a good relationship with our nieces and nephews.
Actually, these are our great nieces.
Oh, really?
I should clarify that. And it actually turns out to be a win-win situation. These are youngsters who are attempting to launch their lives. They've just moved out of their home. They're working in jobs that are not paying as well. And this gives us an opportunity to help them financially while they are helping us out. So it's turned out to be a really good situation both ways.
So in your situation, it being that you're married and you love each other, what would have happened? What would you have done if you didn't have a good relationship with your great niece or anyone else?
Well, there is the option that you can hire out healthcare, and it's extremely expensive. If that is the way that you're going to go, you should be aware of the cost. In the last 5 months of my mother's life, I provided her with 24-hour care. And depending on whether it was a nurse's assistant, an LPN, or an RN, the cost ranged from anywhere from $1,900 to $3,000 a week.
A week?
A week. So we spent about $100,000 providing her with day-to-day care and night care because she needed it at that point and did not want to be moved to a nursing home. So you can hire that care. Tim, in fact, provided for someone to come and sit with me at night in the hospital. I was there for 3 nights just so that, as hospitals tend to be very busy, you wanted to make sure someone was on hand, but that cost us $300 per night. So you can get health care in your home. You can get people to come during the day and even through the night, as I did with my mother. But you will need to set aside a fair amount of finances for it.
So it sounds like, one, you want to make sure that you like the facilities that you're around and the doctors. Two,
right. That's very important.
2, it doesn't hurt to be near a family ecosystem.
Yes.
And
a family ecosystem. And also, I will say this also, when we moved into our community, we threw a Christmas party our first year. We invited all of our neighbors who welcomed us to our area. We got to know all of them better. When I did have my knee surgery, I had 2 people come over and bring me food. At least 4 others offered to do whatever they could. So it's good to establish both family and friends as a support system as you walk into retirement.
yeah, and you're fairly new to that neighborhood. It's not like you've lived there for decades, which is good.
Right. Just a year and a half.
Yeah, a year and a half, really.
Right.
So 3, outside the family ecosystem, make sure you make friends and have,
Right.
foxhole buddies.
We worked at it. We made an effort to go out and find people, and we responded to someone who liked to play euchre. We've just found 2 really great friends who love to play euchre, and they're part now of the support system. Them for us and us for them.
Yeah. And this is very important because in the recent medical reviews, loneliness is as much of a factor of sickness and illness as like smoking cigarettes. So that it's very important to develop these local ties to develop friendships.
Yeah, and definitely see that not just with single people, but everyone.
Everyone.
Right.
Exactly right.
And I guess the 4th tip along the family and the friend ecosystem, which is you got to work at being friendly and fostering those relationships, not just because you might need them, but it enriches your life as well.
Sure. It's an investment. It's an investment in this retirement time of your life. You want to be able to enjoy these days, and we find they're much more enjoyable if we have other people that go along with us to a play or, go for a walk with us or do any of the sports that we might want to do. It's just more fun when there's someone that you like with you to do it. And that's something any single person could do. It wouldn't matter if you were married or not. It's a good investment just for your own personal happiness, and as well as doing something good in the community. And volunteer work, by the way, is a great way to get that going. One of the ways we got involved with it at our other place was we did, for victims of domestic abuse, we did a thing where we had people put everything they wanted to donate at the end of their driveway. A bunch of people came with me. The truck came around, and we just drove around the community and loaded up the truck. And we did this every year. And it was one of the ways that we got to know people better, and they got to know us better.
Yeah.
And plus, we did something good for the community. It was perfect.
Now, Patty, when you and I were talking, you made a really good point about even if you're married, you may want to plan to, be proactive because you might not always be married as you get older.
This is true, yes, particularly for women. My mother was my age when my dad died, and she lived another 25 years. She married again, but then outlived her second husband by 18 years. And this is also true in Tim's situation. So I think it's sadly the reality that many women end up, even if they are married now, end up spending a number of years retired and being single. So it's good to be thinking long term. And Tim and I have sat down and discussed this very issue. What should we do if one of us should pass? What would be the best thing for the other person? Do we have the finances for that? What can we do to make that easier should that transition come to us?
That's why you guys on the show. You guys are so wise. Hopefully some of that rubbed off on me. I don't know.
Thank you, Roger. That's very sweet.
Well, thank you for sharing your perspective, because I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Great. It's a great thing they're doing with these podcasts. We're enjoying them, and we wish you continued luck, and give our love to your family, okay?
Hey, thanks, guys. Man, love those two. Love those two. Now we're going to talk to another single guy. We're going to talk to Herb, who wants to make sure the male voice is represented on this flying solo edition of Retirement Plan Live. So, hey, Herb, let's go talk to Herb. So, Herb, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, how old are you?
I'm 55 years old and, of course, single, divorced, and no children, living in Maryland.
In Maryland, okay. Now, I was laughing because when the episode came out earlier this month, you emailed and said, hey, where are the guys?
Yeah, exactly.
And I said, well, come on. No guys stepped up. You were the only one. I wonder why that is.
Well, I'm going to try my best to represent a few of the guys. I know there are a lot of guys that listen to the show, but maybe they're just a little gun shy.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. So now, how long have you been single?
I've been single for I've been divorced for about 15 years, been in relationships during that time. And like I said, currently live alone and enjoying life.
So yeah, 15 years. So you have your sea legs for sure. How is it being single at 55? Do you enjoy it?
Roger, I have to admit, I never thought I would be in this situation. I come from a family that my mom and dad were married for over 50 years until he passed away about 5 years ago. And I always saw myself, being married and maybe having a family. And I think just over time, you kind of get into you get a little set in your way, and you realize that time goes by, and next thing you know, you're in your mid-50s and you're looking at retirement.
So in your mind, what age do you see yourself retiring?
That's a good question. I'm looking anywhere between the next 3 to 5 years. So I would say anywhere between the age of 58 and 60.
Okay.
I do plan on moving, and that's a little bit of a surprise to my family. I don't think they actually believe it because I'm kind of born and raised in the Maryland area. And I just want a different change of location. The cost of living here is kind of high. So I want to go someplace where there's a little bit of a lower cost of living in just kind of a new environment.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I have those similar aspirations, except I'm married and my wife won't move right now. So I guess that's one plus for you is that you could do that if you want, right?
Yeah, that's one of the, I think, advantages is that I looked at it as far as being single is concerned, is that you have options in terms of where you want to possibly live. I'm looking at 4 different cities right now, and I'm going to start this year and start visiting them. One I've already visited a couple of times. The other 3 I have to visit and try to get a feel for whether I would like to, live there.
Now, one of the things that we've heard from others and that we talked about is one of the risks of being single as you get older in retirement is having a social network. So for you, who is going to retire and maybe move to someplace totally new, are you concerned about not having those people around you?
A little concerned, but I look at it as a challenge. I've been doing a little studying lately about the importance of having a social network. You're right. Even more than the money aspect of it. And so now what I'm trying to do is get out of my comfort zone a little bit, start doing more things that involve more social activity so I can get into the habit of doing that. So when I move, it'll be kind of an easier transition. I'm fortunate enough to have some friends that are already retired. I have one friend that's 10 years older, one is 20 years older. And the one that's, 20 years older, she's kind of my role model, my hero. She's moved to several different places around the country since she's been retired and didn't know anybody. And she immediately gravitated to the environment and met friends. And now she has a social network from people all over the country. And I would hope maybe one day I could kind of be like that, just kind of blend into the environment and meet other people. So I look at it as a challenge, and then I say, well, if it really doesn't work out, you can always go back home.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Now, you sound like a pretty optimistic kind of guy. So what things on the horizon that worry you?
I think the thing that worries me is like the past year, a number of my friends have gotten sick, and I've been kind of the person that takes them to doctor's visits and so forth. And I think about, now that part I think about and say, what happens if I'm in another town and I get sick? But I try not to worry about that because I kind of think that if you do spend too much time focusing on that, it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy and you can find yourself in a situation. So, if you live an active life, have friends around you, be happy, I think that decreases your chance of having anything. Of course, you don't know that 100%. But I'm kind of that guy from Jack Nicholson movie, The Bucket List, without all the money. But I kind of go about things in an adventurous type of way. I like to do a lot of different things. So, I try to have a positive attitude, and I don't focus too much. I've had a little bit of minor health concerns, but I haven't had anything major up to this point.
Okay. And what's interesting is that's sort of a worry for everybody, whether you're single or married.
Yes.
Okay.
But I did have to admit, I did read recently an article in Market Watch, and they talked about how the baby boomers, the people over 50, the divorce rate is twice as much as it's been since 1990. So the journalist was kind of alluding to the fact that could that be because we're living longer and people want to live more fulfilling lives? So I've been fortunate enough to meet some friends, and they're kind of, like I said, they're kind of my heroes, especially women. They have more of a tendency to go to a place where they don't know too many people, and they make friends, and those friends end up being their support system, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, I think that's a great perspective on it. So what else do you think about that's unique to being single as you get closer to retirement?
That's a good question. I guess the uniqueness of it is the flexibility that you have, being able to get up and go and seek new adventures or do things without having needing the approval of a spouse or a significant other. Yeah, you do worry about the financial part, but I think that goes with any situation. I think it's just more the opportunity of doing things. I have to admit, I'm, kind of unique in certain ways that I like to do, like I said, a lot of different things. Not sure I'm going to be able to find a woman that's going to be okay traveling the United States in an RV. So,
well, you'd be surprised. That is like one of my wife. That's the one thing she talks about, but you can't have her, so you're gonna have to find your own.
I think you better hold on to her because a lot of guys are going to be really coming after her. So, but it does give you, like I said, a certain amount of options. And I try to look at it on the optimistic side in that the companionship side on a daily basis. I think a person could miss that. But as more people retire and more people are single, you'd be surprised, just people are very open and friendly and you meet. So there's opportunity to meet other people that are in those areas of the hobbies that you enjoy. So I'm kind of excited because it's really the unknown. And I think that's what gets me so excited and optimistic, because I don't think that you should know everything that's going to happen in life or try to control it. Just kind of learn to go with the flow and enjoy the moment as it goes along, even though there's going to be some bumps in the road.
Well, Herb, I think you represented the men well, and I appreciate you asking, hey, where are the men, and coming on board. So thanks for sharing your perspective.
Sure.
Hey, welcome to the Happy Lab, where we noodle on how to live a happier life. And Roger, how are you today? You don't sound so good.
The allergic reactions to the horses in Mongolia are horrible. Wait, let me get the EpiPen. Okay, I'm fine now.
Oh, great. That's wonderful.
No, we're joking. Obviously, this is pre-recorded because if you're listening to this on release day, I am actually in Mongolia riding a horse across the Gobi Desert.
And please feel free to tell us how cheesy this is in the listener survey at the end of the year.
Well, it's released. I am technically in Mongolia at the moment, having a blast with my good friend Rajib. And that's what's making me happy. I have to tell you, it truly is the land of the blue sky.
You know already, huh?
Yes, I do. I've seen photos. Well, no, I'm sitting here looking at it right now. Anyway, embrace life. Go do things that make you happy. Be adventurous, because that's probably where you're at your best.
On your marks, get set.
And we're off. A 7-day sprint to creating a great life. So I'm just going to give you an ask right here, okay? Because I'm sitting here in my home office. We're going through this retirement plan live. We're following a truncated version of the agile retirement management process. And hopefully you've been planning along. One thing that can really help you go do that is to go, please, buy my book. And I'm not saying that because it's going to make me tons of money. I'm saying that because, especially from the feedback we got, it's going to help give you a better perspective on life, money, and finances and creating a great retirement. So I am confident that it's going to help you on your journey. So you can go to rogerwhitney.com/book. You can buy it through any of the bookstores. If you do buy the Kindle copy and leave a review, or even if you just leave a review and you bought the physical one, tell me and I will send you another one autographed because I got a lot of them. So help me help you. I think it'll be a great addition to your library.
Roger, I like how in this same episode you have managed to be in Mongolia and in your home office. That's pretty impressive.
I am amazing, yes.
So if you guys are following along with Sam and her journey and you're interested in watching our live results webinar on June the 7th, make sure that you're signed up for 6 Shot Saturday so you can get that invitation to the webinar. That's it for now. I'm Nicole, awesome sidekick.
I'm Roger Whitney, the Retirement Answer Man, and you are not just going to survive retirement, you're going to rock retirement.
We appreciate you joining us today for this episode of Retirement Answer Man. Be sure to visit rogerwhitney.com/answers to access the Retirement Answer Library with over 30 checklists to help you make the most of the only life you have. Remember, you have more power than you realize to create an amazing life starting today with Retirement Answer Man. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Have a wonderful day.